Good morning, everybody. We're starting just a little bit early. We have our full program this morning for American Food Prize. And again, we're going to sing America the Beautiful. We're going to do an acapella this morning again. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God sheds His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining seas. Would everyone please bow their heads? Let us pray silently together, each one of us, according to our individual beliefs. Let us offer thanks for our food and blessings for one another. Let us be a source of hope for those in need and contentment for those who are lonely. Let us give gratitude for our opportunity to serve Rotary. Let the feelings of love, kindness, and a well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. Amen. Bruce, do you have birthdays this morning?
I have birthdays this insurance of the Big Hurry and 3 birthdays. Rocky West.
I'm in a big hurry.
From my bros to be.
And I here with Valerie's here. Valerie. And I'll have Jen McElwain's here. Well, Valerie, we get to sing this for you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. And they live down in our valley.
That was beautiful.
Thank you for that. Lexa, do we have any business? Yes. Or...
We have a guest today, Tom Gettings. He's well known to some of us, like Mike and Bill, and we'll be hearing more later.
Thank you. October 13th, guys, is the Purple Pinky Race. It's coming up quickly. Anyone who likes to go out and do a walk, it's not always a race, it's a walk. Most of the people walk. It's a $25 entrance fee. I will be walking along, my wife and the other Rotarians that want to come along. I don't run. Okay, guys? Not really sure why. But I do. Anyway, it's a great cause. For those of you who don't know what the Purple Pinky is, when they go out to get polio vaccinations, they actually dip the children's fingers in a purple dye so they know they received their vaccination. Otherwise, they keep going back and back in line.
Because they get
It's fruitless. Yes.
Cindy sent an email, there's actually 2 of them, aren't there? Is
Well,
the
there's
13th the one at LCPI, or wherever it is?
I thought it was more towards Sourton. So ours is up here.
And that's the 13th.
That's the 13th. And then there's another one that is down near Sourton for that part of the district. And it just makes it easier to have 2 of them. And I think Kurt wants a lot more money. World Polio Day is October 24th. Still looking at a way to celebrate that, so if any have any ideas, please come and give them to me. I'd surely appreciate them. Steve or John, anything on the golf?
Next Monday, here at Brookside Country Club. If you still want to golf, we can probably get you into golf. I think sponsorships are signage is all done. We can still sell raffle tickets, so if you have any ability to sell a raffle ticket or 2 for the Masters, it would be greatly appreciated. You can sell online. We're looking at just under 110 golfers, and gross revenue is similar to what it was last year. So thank you guys to date, and again, raffle tickets are greatly appreciated. Go ahead, Tom.
And we have 4 people assisting at the table, so that should be
So we're good.
sufficient, correct?
Yep.
We have Doug, we have Joanne, we have Roger, and we have Mike. So, get there about 11:30.
How are we doing on ticket sales, Bob? Any idea?
Not near enough.
Not near enough.
Yeah.
That's a really good answer, thank you.
No, he said my name.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
We're listening.
Do you have flies over there, Steve?
Yeah, he looks like
I think it's bedbugs.
Mosquitoes.
Please. Do you want to say something, Steve?
You're thinking about that too.
Do I want to say something?
Conversation.
Yes.
Thank you for everyone for participating in this year's golf tournament. It's going to be the best net ever.
You're welcome.
Any other announcements from the floor? Ralph?
Just like to thank everybody. We got 2.5 boxes full of food out there, and we got $61 of food for the needy. Thank you all for everything.
Thank you, Ralph, for doing that. Sal?
We just collect it on.
Yeah, just like to put a quick plug in.
Once a month.
East Hampton School District Education Foundation is sponsoring a career fair, the first one in the district. It's going to be the best one in the valley. It's October 4th.
I'll be there.
Career, so we actually are doing it just the roots. So if you'd like to show off your career or your career, whatever it is you'd like to do, please see me. We have tables available in the gym. So far, over 50 tables of different variety of careers. So if you enjoy talking about yours, we got a place for you.
Nothing.
Any other announcements from the floor? Eileen?
Well, I want to thank anybody who brought deodorant in today. I'm sure you're all using a lot of deodorant with this weather. So when you have to go buy it, bring more, and we'll be collecting them until November. Thanks.
Thank you.
Available to borrow?
No, you can't borrow
So on
it.
Tuesday, I went to the, I think it's Central Perk Rotary Club for a makeup meeting, and I told them I would happily announce, so their big fundraiser is actually to purchase computers for kids at the high school. So on October 6th, they're having a Fest. It's $30 a person. They get 15 computers out this year. So if anybody's interested, I do have the information for that.
Thank you very much. So, remember, September 27th, remember that date. Bring a member or a friend to the fellowship meeting at Christina's Palace. And it's absolutely important. I stopped by the other day. Legends at Allentown, is that correct? It's absolutely beautiful. Bruce, you're gonna love it there. I think Patty will appreciate the memory care facility. It looks just like Main Street. You'll like it a lot. Joanna, do you have the raffle?
Tom, no, you pick that.
Okay, uh-oh. I did not wear my glasses, so I don't want to make sure that, yes. I don't want to make somebody mad at me.
3, 4, 5. Come in a little bit later.
Three, 6, 2.
Hey!
But that's what I take. And I still have I just have to get you a letter that gets to me. Message me. So our work process, one of the 3 counts.
344.
You count this half
Right here.
you know, and then you have the sheet close, and you're done. Yeah, it's
Thank you, Joanna.
but people can't add. Yeah, I put a calculator on
Sergeant Arms, Don Lewis.
We had an assortment of people come in late. I go by the clock, okay? It says 7:30. If your name's not on the paper, you're late. I don't care if the doors close behind me or not. That's where you're considered late. So John Chisholm, John Zayas, Jeff Tinsel, and the list goes on. They're awful late. We thank you for coming, but you still owe a fine for being late. Tad, I believe you were part of that later riding group. You know, you guys make it difficult for people who have to count the money. So, you know, let's get in here on time and make it easy for people who have to count the money. It's coming in late and they count it, then you have to recount it. It's, you know, it's a difficult situation to be in. And I got your money already, Mark, you were way late. Yes. All right. He gave me way a lot of money for being
In
late.
fact, he's not even dressed all the way. He's got his shirt on, but I'm not sure that's always done.
I just hope he's not riding a motorcycle. That would scare a lot of people on the road. Herb was visiting Ken, so I got his fine.
I'll control the pain by taking the initiative. I'll be doing the Paul Harrison. I forgot to send out the notice. I feel like Uncle Leo on Seinfeld. I don't know where I am and what I'm doing. So here's $10.
Oh, boy.
Maybe we should have another room for you.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, let's just go to Happy Dollars. Come on. Everybody's got to be happy here today. The ones that weren't fined anyway. Go ahead, JP.
I have two announcements. The continuing adventures of my Catherine. She decided that she had nothing better to do with her day off last week on Friday than bake a batch of kiffles and take them over to the Allentown Fair and enter them into the PA Preferred Under 18 Baking Contest. Wow. She took second with the kiffles. So wow. With that, hung the ribbon up in the kitchen and everything. And another $2 if you're looking for something to do Thursday, today, so Friday and Saturday, head up to the St. Anne's Fall Fest. You'll be able to see me sweating and losing anywhere between 15 and 20 pounds as the guy running the sausage stand. Yeah. So Italian sausage, kielbasa, meatball sandwiches, homemade clam chowder, made it yesterday myself from scratch, and lots of other stuff. You don't want to do that. So, but St. Anne's tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. Hopefully.
It's that time of year again. Field hockey is going strong at Exeter High School. First game I didn't go to, it was on Friday. It was raining here, so I thought I'm not sitting in the rain to watch a game, so I didn't go. Unfortunately or fortunately, it didn't rain down there. My granddaughter Peyton, she scored. They won 8-0. She scored 4 goals and had 2 assists. I went down on Saturday for a 10 o'clock in the morning game. This time they won 8-4. She scored 4 goals and had 1 assist. So she's off and running. So let's get ready to hear it every week.
$2 happy because the Eagles get to defend their Super Bowl championship starting tonight.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Phillies now.
We're not talking about the Phillies.
Did you say we have a full schedule today?
Phillies fans just about football season
Thank you
started.
very much. So as Bill alluded to before, he has something to get out today. I'm going to pass the meeting over to Bill for a few minutes.
Thank you, Rick. I stood in front of this group many times over the years presenting a Paul Harris's Laurel to Rotarians. Today, I have the distinct privilege of presenting a Paul Harris to a non-Rotarian. Now, having said that, let me point out that this non-Rotarian, Tom Gettings, embodies the spirit of Rotary in the sense that he freely gives of his time, talent, and treasure to this community and has done that for decades. Tom started at Rodale as a photographer. He's a consummate outdoorsman, and with that skill or talent, he was able to share many, many photographs. Anybody that's familiar with his photography, it's just unbelievable. And he was able to share his love and passion for the outdoors through that. After his retirement, he went to Wildlands Conservancy, and quite frankly, that's where his ability to engage in the outdoors and expose this entire community to the outdoors in many different ways. I'll mention a few of them in a moment. Where he was able to expose people to the outdoors, and you're probably aware there are many studies out there indicating outdoor experiences are mentally and physically beneficial. So when you talk about raising the bar in this community and making people healthier and happier and just every other way, the outdoors is the way to do it. Tom was instrumental in creating a number of programs at the Conservancy. One was Bike and Boat. If you've not heard of Bike and Boat, I can't give you the number, but I'd say that over the many, many years since that program has started, there are many, many, many thousands of people that have experienced that Bike and Boat, which is basically biking along a trail and then boating in the Lehigh River. And if you've not been in the Lehigh River, you heard me talk about the Wildlands Sojourn. It is a beautiful facility. It's beautiful to see from the river. Many places you can't even see it because there's tree lining along it, but when you get on the river and see it, you see the beauty of that thing running through the valley. He developed the Walk for Wellness, and he hiked the highlands, and he created 100 maps of trails. And speaking of trails, Tom has been involved in probably every trail project in the Lehigh Valley in some way, shape, or form to get that connectivity, and it's my understanding we are close to the point there's going to be total connection throughout the valley, and I believe the intent is at some point to be able to take trails from here to Philadelphia. So he's been very instrumental in setting the groundwork for that, and others have picked up from there. He's involved with a couple other organizations that I'll mention, and then I'm going to ask Mike to talk briefly about the one that he's worked more extensively with him. He's on the board of directors, Lehigh County Agricultural Preservation Board, so he's very ingrained in land preservation, the Pennsylvania Farm Link Board, the National Canal Museum Board, the Commemorative Gardens, and that's the one that Mike will talk about in a moment, the Seed Farm. He is on the Environmental Advisory Council for Upper Saucon Township, and he's on the Planning Steering Committee of Youngsville High School Alumni Planning Committee. So you can see through many of these things in the activities. As I said, he lives and breathes the outdoors and is very willing to share that with his community in every possible way you can think of. And with that, I'll have Mike come up for a moment and speak of his experience with Tom for the Remembrance Garden.
Thank you, Bill. I met Tom in 2000. We were both part of the Emmaus Visioning Committee, where we talked about ways to improve the borough of Emmaus, to continue what we were already doing, but what were some new ideas? I met this guy by the name of Tom Getting. I said, what an interesting guy. I hope he gets involved. And he did, fortunately. He got involved with the Remembrance Garden. We've been together almost 20 years now. It's hard to believe. What I find interesting about Tom is he has never refused doing something that I've asked him to do as executive director. If he's in town, he'll do it. As Bill said, he's a consummate photographer. If you look at our website or the pictures I post on our Facebook page, many of those are Tom's. Unfortunately, I love it when he shows up with his camera. I take snapshots, Tom takes photographs. There's a huge difference. Tom is an excellent writer, speaker, a huge helper, an idea guy, and fundraiser. One of the first things we did when we started the Remembrance Garden, Tom found someone at the Wildlands to create a drawing that we had, a diagram for the concept of the Remembrance Garden. We took that around and raised $50,000. Between Tom and Roger Whitcomb, they are rainmakers, and they can talk the talk and walk the walk. They are excellent at it. I was really pleased when Bill mentioned, actually several months ago, about giving a Paul Harris to Tom, because I think he truly exemplifies what we call service above self. I think he's the poster child for service above self. So it's a privilege to do this with Tom today. Bill?
Okay, with that background, Tom, if you'd like to come up here, Mike, if you want to come back. As I've indicated in the past with the first Paul Harris, there is a certificate, there is a medallion, and a pen. So with that background and that in mind, Tom, on behalf of the Rotary Foundation, I would like to present this Paul Harris to you in recognition of your tremendous, tremendous commitment to this community and your willingness to give freely of your time, talent, and treasure.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
This afternoon, we're going to be putting a brick. We're going to be putting a brick into the Remembrance Garden walkway for Bob and Artie Rodale. In 1971, when I came to Emmaus, it was to work as the director of photography of Rodale. In 1973, Bob Rodale went to China with a group of journalists, the first people behind that mysterious place over there in China. When he came back, He had shot many, many photographs. He was very talented as a photographer and among other things. We converted them from we made them from negatives into slides. And he wanted to share them with the people of Emmaus. So we rented the Owl's Nest. Who here remembers the Owl's Nest downtown? It was the biggest place in town, I think, at the time, maybe other than the school. We filled the building up, and he spent hours showing those photographs to what he considered to be his friends and his neighbors in Emmaus. And he said that night something that stuck with me forever. He said, Artie and I travel the world, but we always come home to Emmaus. And today we're going to put that brick into the sidewalk, and that's going to be on the brick. They always came home to Emmaus. I've been here since '71, and I'd like to echo the words of Bob Rodale. I'll always come home to Emmaus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom, Bill, and Mike. Next, Steve, would you like to introduce our fellow Rotarian?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I wanted to just review very quickly. We've had some great presentations and classification talks. Most of you know you can go to emmausrotary.org and you can see everything you need to know about future programs and so forth, but I'm just going to review this quickly to get you excited about what's going on. I'll have Bruce Foster come up. Bruce?
Your left.
Oh, hi.
Yeah,
How are you?
We're in a hurry. Remember, Rick said we're in a hurry.
That's right, we're doing good. I'm taking the heat off of Rich here. Bruce is going to introduce our speaker today, a classification talk. Next week, we have Mark Earl coming in, and he's going to present his travels to the Czech Republic. I'm sure you've been preparing hard for that, Mark. Just a reminder that it's next week. Then we have Irv Keister's classification talk on September 20th. Rachel Farrow is an outreach director for Turning Point of the Lehigh Valley. She'll be coming in on September 27th. We have a club assembly on October 4th. And then we have Mary Ellen Kanar from the Emmaus Library coming in on October 11th. She's going to explain what's going on over at the Emmaus Library. Most of you have seen some construction going over there, so she's going to bring in a presentation on that. There will be a Czech presentation from the Community Services Committee. And then we have a membership induction on October 19th. And then on October 26th, we have a gentleman coming in named Peter Bio. And he is one of the first medical marijuana growers in the state of Pennsylvania. So that could be a very interesting...
Samples.
It could be. I've already talked to Bob Halsey about that, and he is very excited about that. And so we should probably pack up the room. And then we go into November, and we are wide open. Now, I do have a couple people yet that people have suggested presentations, but let's really make it as dicey as we can. Give me some suggestions. Let's make it as interesting as we can for these programs. I want to go out in style before I'm past the throne, the gavel, which I'm really kind of pooping in my pants about. So anyway, Bruce Fossman.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Tom. How are you? Good to see you. It's my honor and privilege to bring Rich Ward up. Rich, I met, actually I brought him into the club, but I met Rich through his wife, Debbie, who works for me. She's in the planning department. Rich used to be on the Lower Country Zoning Hearing Board, and then two years ago, when Jim Lansing or Ben Gagliardo retired, Rich came on, and then last year he was elected as the thankless job of being a commissioner in Lower Macungie. But Richard has a lot to tell us, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about Rich and his family.
I'm going to try to see if this will work here. Always exciting.
Get a picture of Stevie's head.
I'm not going to narrate these pictures. These are just pictures of my family. So, you guys can peruse that. Go ahead, Rich. I'm just going to get you. Yeah, if you can. Thank you. Yeah. Great.
Is it F-13?
First of all, I'd like to thank Bruce for sponsoring me here. As Bruce mentioned, I live here in Lower Macungie with my wife Debbie for 24 years, and my son Richie 22, and Tyler 17. Richie's a senior at Kutztown. Tyler's a senior at, a freshman at L-Tri-C. We also have a dog, a rabbit, and a bearded dragon lizard. The lizard's the best one. Doesn't bother anybody, doesn't bark. Really easy to take care of. Let me just start and just kind of explain a little bit about where I come from. My path in life is probably a little bit different than maybe most of you all here. I grew up in the borough of Queens, New York, in a town called Corona. Many of you may know that from the Simon and Garfunkel, Rosie, Queen of Corona. Oh, actually, Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard is actually the name of the song. The neighborhood consisted of predominantly Italian Americans with a mix of Irish and Greek. I grew up in a Catholic Italian American household with my mother, brother, and grandmother in my grandmother's home. My grandfather came to this country from Florence, Italy when he was 9 years old. It was interesting. He went to school, wound up getting into multiple fights because he kept being called a guinea wop, and decided to not deal with school anymore. So he wound up working for a lumber yard and supporting his wife and 6 children. So you would never know that he didn't have the education that he did have. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was 2, so I didn't get to know him very well, but of course my mother and family have always told me a lot about him. Interestingly, again, his first language being Italian, he only wanted his family in the house to speak English. He came to this country for the benefit of being an American. And he never wanted, to this day, my aunts and uncles never spoke Italian. They understood it, but they never conversed in Italian. My father left when I was 4 years old and my brother was 6. My mother was the homemaker. She stayed at home to take care of the family. My grandmother had some medical issues, so prevented my mother from being out. My mother was the youngest of 6 children. She was an aunt by the age of 9, so I was her youngest, so I have cousins that are old enough to be my parents. Although, I didn't have a father around, we had a very strong family unit. And people say, I came from a broken home. I didn't come from a broken home. I come from a very loving, caring home. The marriage was broken, but my family was not broken. Although my father wasn't around, we had, like I said, had one family. Our family always looked out for each other. My grandmother was the matriarch. Everybody gathered, gravitated. She was like the solar system. She was the Earth. She would do with the solar system, wrapping around her. She was an amazing cook. She made the best, macaroni, meatballs, and gravy, not pasta, meatballs, and sauce. Just to designate there. The gravy is sauce here, but it was gravy when I was growing up. And it's a little bit difficult being, coming from that type of household, growing up with that kind of food, and going to an Italian restaurant. You're very biased. They can't beat grandma's cooking. So, it's tough. I do it all the time. Again, my mom was the most loving, caring person you ever want to meet. Although we didn't have money, we didn't have much of anything growing up. We had a roof over our head, which we were happy for, and food on the table, and that's really what mattered. Even though we didn't have much, she would give whatever she had to someone in need. That's just the way we were. That's the way we were brought up. We helped each other. Even though my brother and I knew we didn't have money, it never made a difference. We have really good friends that were all, across the street, around the block. We would have pickup games in the street, on macadam, on asphalt. We didn't have the pleasure of open space like you have here. But it was an experience that I would never trade. It was really a wonderful childhood. It's funny because I don't know if any of you ever recall the old Ronzoni commercials where the woman lifts up the window and puts her head out the window and yells for you to come home for dinner. That was my mother. She knew we were in earshot and just scream out the window and we go home for dinner. But it was like I said, a wonderful childhood. And not having things accessible to us because of our finances, it helped me to learn how to do for myself. You know, whether that was, you know, maintaining the house at a very young age. I would help my uncle. It was a flat roof, you know, a pitched flat roof. It was a semi-attached home. And I would go up with my uncle at the age of 9, fixing the roof, tarring the roof, and making the repairs as necessary. I had aunts and cousins and uncles that lived around the corner from us, so we were always, in our neighborhood, everybody knew each other. You know, if I didn't know them, they knew who I was. They knew I was Joyce's son, so that was a given. They always looked out, they always would watch and stuff. And, you know, again, as mentioned, when we would help each other, we had a few elderly people in the community that we would help and go to the grocery store for, or shovel for them, things like that, just to, you know, to be a good person, to be a good citizen. When I was 13, I got my first job working in a local candy store. It was just to help finances out in the family. And then I worked, through high school, I worked at a place called the Lemon-Ice King of Corona. If any of you are familiar with the TV comedy King of Queens, in the very beginning of the show, you'll see Kevin James and Leah Remini walk up to a window and grab an Italian ice. He turns around and it falls off and it drops onto the ground. That's the Lemon-Ice King of Corona. That's still there. And actually a good friend of mine that I know since 2nd grade, I got him the job there when I was in high school. He is now the proprietor. He's been there for 35 years. So they're still making the best Italian ice. Rita's has nothing on it. Fresh squeezed lemons, oranges, real Hershey's chocolate syrup to make the chocolate. Everything is just spot on, fresh, beautiful, really good stuff. If you're ever there, I highly recommend it. We were also in walking distance to Shea Stadium. So I'm a Mets fan, although I'm not a Jets fan. I'm a Steelers fan. And that honestly is only due to the fact that back when I was growing up in the early 70s and into the 80s, the Jets and the Giants were both not very good teams. And this was before the advent of cable television, so you had your basic channels. And the Steelers and the Cowboys were always on. And I hate the Cowboys, so I became a Steelers fan. When I wound up graduating high school, I always wanted to be a carpenter. My uncle was a carpenter, and I always enjoyed, you know, watching what he did. He made furniture and things like that. And so I joined the Carpenters Union out of high school. That was not exactly what I had anticipated in New York. In New York, carpentry is sheetrock and metal studs, and I was looking for furniture and home repairs and things of that nature. So I did that for a while, but then soon realized I did not want to do work in Manhattan. That was not my goal. So I wound up working for a home renovation company on Long Island that did new homes renovations, and really enjoyed doing that. At that time is when I met my beautiful wife, Debbie, through a mutual friend out in the Hamptons. I was there with friends, and she was with friends, and we wound up meeting, and we've been together ever since. So over 28 years we're together now. So, but that was a blessing. And we actually met on my mother's birthday, which is May 26th in 1990, which is was on Memorial Day weekend. Really interesting story. Debbie and I got engaged in 1992. We had an engagement party, and at the party, my grandmother was still alive at the time, and her grandfather was alive. And we were sitting down, and they were commiserating. They were sitting down talking with each other. And Debbie's grandfather looks at my grandmother and goes, "I know you." Now, mind you, my grandmother's 86 years old at this time, and he was in his late 70s. He points at my grandmother and goes, "I know you." Turns out they grew up on the same block in Harlem, 108th Street in Harlem, New York City, when they were kids. And he remembered my aunt and my grandmother, and my grandmother remembered him being the little boy that was on the corner shining shoes to make a buck for his family. So it was really just a bizarre, very small world we live in, so I'll tell you that. Unfortunately, Debbie's grandfather and my grandmother passed away before we got married in 1994. Debbie and I got married on April 22nd, 94. In 1996, we purchased our first home in Green Lawn, Long Island, and 4 very short months later, our first son, Richie, was born. Debbie had some complications with preeclampsia and toxemia, which caused her to go into premature labor. So he was born 7 weeks early. He was all of 3 pounds, 8 ounces when he was born, and spent 23 days in the NICU. It's a very trying time, stressful time. It's very difficult, and you kind of don't know how you do what you do, but you kind of go through the motions because you have to. He was not close by. We had to have her sent to a trauma center because of her condition. So it was a good, Long Island, 30 minutes away. On Long Island, it's really 45 plus because of the traffic. But we made an effort every day to go and feed him at least once in the NICU for 23 days. And then when we finally got him home, we're like, now what do we do? You know? Only to find out that, you know, him not being with us for 23 days, we didn't know all was going on with him. I mean, fortunately he was healthy. They said they just needed to water him to get his weight up so we could take him home. But we get him home, and the goal that the kid did was scream. He screamed and cried, so much so that he double herniated himself. And at 8 weeks old, we actually had to have him go in for surgery, which was a very difficult thing. My wife's knees buckled as she was handing our infant to the nurse to take in for surgery. But happily to say that he's a healthy, strapping 22-year-old young man now that's really doing wonderful things. He's going to have an awesome career in cybersecurity. He currently is actually working for LBHN in a temporary position. He has something coming down after the new year, but for now he's at least getting his feet wet in that industry. At that time, again, as I mentioned, we were living in Long Island. Once things kind of settled down and we kind of got into a groove of things, I had my neighbor across the street was the chief of the local fire department, and he had convinced me to join. My wife was very much against it because she was fearful, of course, understanding, you know, that there's danger there. But he got her on a soft moment when we were having a couple of cocktails. So she just said, yeah, sign him up. You know? And so I wound up joining the fire department and being a volunteer firefighter and EMT for the years we lived on Long Island. And then, I don't know if any of you noticed, but the pin up here, this is actually and we're coming up on the 17th anniversary of 9/11. This is a commemorative pin of the 343 firefighters that we lost on 9/11. Fortunately, none of because although we were volunteers, we had a lot of volunteers. Most of Long Island is volunteer fire department. However, a lot of those guys do work for the city of New York, the fire department of New York City. So, unfortunately, our surrounding firefighters in neighboring towns, we did lose, unfortunately, some of those firefighters perished in the towers, which, you know, we went to many funerals, which was a very sad situation. So I wound up joining and again becoming an emergency firefighter and EMT, which I really enjoyed. I mean, it's not easy work, but it's very gratifying when you can help people, especially when they're in that kind of need, whether it be, unfortunately, if there's a structure fire or, God forbid, you know, medical condition, things of that nature. There's really nothing, you know, short of the feeling you get to be able to help people that really truly need your help. So that, you know, that was really my foray into more of the community type of service that I got into. And in 1998, 20 years ago, unfortunately, I lost my mom at the very tender age of 57, 2 weeks after her 57th birthday, and 2 months prior to Richie's 22nd birthday. She had some complications. The year prior, she had to have a double mastectomy, and I don't think her immune system really ever was up to speed. She wound up getting a blood infection and passed away at 57, which is still, you know, there's still a void, of course. She was really just an amazing person that had such a love for life. I mean, she really enjoyed life. She was just always a happy-go-lucky person, even though She did not have the easiest life. Most people would consider what she had a very difficult life, but she never looked at it that way. She was really, it saddens me that my kids didn't get to know her. That's really the most difficult thing for me. So anyhow, back in 1997, I'm in the fire department, and great camaraderie, and I'll use the term brotherhood, but there were many women that were in the fire department. It's just, I don't know another word to say other than brotherhood. But it was a wonderful situation. If we needed anything, anybody was there to help you. Unfortunately, we had a couple of calls at our home, and all you have to do is say that there's a firefighter's home. And next thing you know, you have ambulances and fire trucks literally on your front lawn, willing to help. So it's a wonderful part of the community to be in. I did want to join when I got here. Unfortunately, I did not have the time, as I was working in Manhattan at the time, and just didn't have the time to devote, which you have to devote time to that service. When we moved here, I was working for a company in New York, and what's considered I work for a proxy solicitation firm. What I do is I consult with and advise publicly traded companies on how to help them get their proposals passed for whatever the ballot item is, a special meeting, a merger meeting, whatever may come their way that they need to try to get help with passing. And what I do is I take a look through their shareholder profile, see whether it's a lot of retail individuals that hold through a bank or broker, or they're heavily institution, and then we strategize a plan as to help them get their proposals passed. I started doing that in 1998 was when I got my first foray into the industry. And now I've been with my current company for 8 years. They're based out of Bloomfield, New Jersey, but I work primarily from home. So it's I don't have to do that commute anymore, which is a blessing. We moved out here in 2004 for a number of reasons. It was really getting the cost of living in Long Island was just ridiculous. And the congestion, it was taking me over 2 hours to get to New York City by train. So I said, well, I'd rather have a little bit more quality of life when I am home and still have the same commute. So it really was, I didn't give up a commute when I came here. I had that same issue. Let's see. Sorry, just trying to find track. And just to summarize, I did when I came here. I was here for about 2 years, and I decided to get involved in the community again. And at that point, I joined the Public Safety Commission for the township, again, volunteer position, just to take residents' concerns, whether it would be speeding or any sort of safety issue in the community. And we would advise then the board of commissioners as to what the concerns were, what our recommendations, if we have any, as to how to alleviate these concerns. So I was on the public safety for 4 years, then was on the zoning and hearing board for 2.5 years, and then, as Bruce mentioned, back in June of 2017, Ben Galliardo stepped down. I had already won the primary, so the board deemed it, that it would be fine with appointing me for the remainder of Ben's term. I then won the November election and started my 4-year term this January. I really enjoy, helping the community in any way that I can. I really feel that we're on a good path for the township. We've made a lot of strides to kind of stem the tide of some, exorbitant expansion. We really want to make sure we have a good community, not just for us, but for the future, where people can enjoy the town that they live in and the space that they have available to them. So I'm really happy to be part of it. I was really happy that I was able to be involved in replacement of Bruce, because that's not going to be an easy thing to do. But I think we have a really good gentleman that's going to fit in nicely. that'll be announced tonight. So come down to the meeting tonight. Yes, sir.
3 minutes.
Oh, I thought you just had a question. Anyone have any questions? Good. Oh, yes.
Rich, can you describe more what your occupation is as a consultant?
Sure. Again, what I do is I have clients that are publicly traded companies. So when they need, most publicly traded companies, not all, but if you go into the SEC website and if you pull up a ticker symbol and you look at a company, if you just search for solicitation, it'll tell you that they, not everybody, but sometimes you'll see that they retain the services of a solicitation firm to help them to have the shareholder outreach. So what we do is I am able to, again, depending on the company and depending on what type of share owners they have. Again, if it's heavily retail, we have an internal call center where we can actually reach out and call individual shareholders. And these are not, I know a lot of people don't want these types of calls, but this is about your investment. It's we're not trying to sell a magazine or something. So we're able to take your vote over the phone. We can confirm who you are, confirm that you own, that you're confirming who you are. We record all the calls, and we take your vote over the phone. That thing gets sent back to the tabulator, where they then tabulate your shares. Conversely, if a company is heavily institutionally held, where they don't have many individual shareholders, then there's another strategy there where we're able to assist them and let them know what the institution looks for on a set proposal, with the concerns that they may have in order to get these proposals passed. So we advise them initially as to whether or not they're going to have a problem. And then if it turns out to be an issue, then we can get them, we have our own database with these institutional firms to be able to get them on the phone to argue their case as to why they should support it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rich. So next week, I have one special announcement, the very last one. You have a very special guest next week for President. I will not be here. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bill. Both of you. Steve is going to be sitting in for me next week, so
I'll take the applause back.
Literally, please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.